France had just fallen. Britain stood completely alone. By June 1940, Hitler controlled nearly all of Western Europe. Only one nation still refused to surrender, and Germany was already planning how to end that resistance for good. Hitler had a plan to finish the war in weeks. Operation Sea Lion called for a full invasion across the Channel. But there was one problem. German troops couldn't cross open water while the Royal Air Force controlled the skies above it. So Hitler ordered the skies cleared first. On July 16th, he signed Directive 16, demanding the destruction of the RAF before any invasion could begin. The Luftwaffe was the most experienced air force in the world. Britain's defense rested on just a few thousand young pilots. Many were barely out of flight school. Against them stood a German air force that had already conquered Poland, France, and half of Europe. They had one advantage the Germans didn't expect. A new invention called radar could detect incoming aircraft before they crossed the coast. It would become Britain's earliest warning, and its last line of defense. The first battles weren't fought over London, they were fought over water. In July 1940, the Luftwaffe began attacking British shipping convoys in the English Channel, testing RAF defenses before the main assault. Radar stations became prime targets from day one. German bombers struck coastal early warning installations, trying to blind Britain's defenses before the real invasion attempt. Every station lost meant more danger inland. RAF pilots were scrambling into the air multiple times a day. Exhaustion set in fast. Some pilots flew 4 or 5 missions daily, snatching sleep in flight suits beside their aircraft, ready to launch in minutes. The skies over the Channel became a graveyard for pilots on both sides. Spitfires and Hurricanes clashed with Messerschmitts in brutal dogfights, often ending with parachutes drifting down into freezing water below. By early August, both sides were bracing for something bigger. German commanders were preparing a massive coordinated assault meant to crush the RAF entirely. They called it Eagle Day. August 13, 1940, the day Germany planned to break Britain's air force forever. Nearly 1,500 Luftwaffe sorties launched in a single day, targeting airfields, factories, and radar stations across southern England. But German intelligence had a critical flaw. Many of the RAF airfields they bombed weren't actually fighter command bases at all. Poor reconnaissance meant real fighter squadrons stayed largely untouched and ready. On the ground, pilots ran for their aircraft as sirens wailed. Ground crews worked in chaos to arm and fuel planes within minutes, knowing any delay could mean the difference between takeoff and destruction. In the air, young pilots faced overwhelming odds. Formations of German bombers, escorted by fighters, filled the sky. RAF pilots dove in, outnumbered, trusting speed and skill over sheer numbers. Eagle Day ended with heavy losses on both sides, but the RAF was still standing. Germany had expected quick victory. Instead, they were about to enter the most brutal weeks of the entire battle. Late August became the most dangerous period of the entire battle. Between August 23rd and September 7th, the Luftwaffe launched relentless daily attacks, hammering RAF airfields again and again without pause. Fighter command was being pushed to the breaking point. Airfields were cratered by bombs almost daily. Aircraft were destroyed faster than they could be replaced, and experienced pilots were dying at an alarming rate. New pilots arrived with only weeks of training. Some had barely a dozen flying hours before being sent into combat against seasoned German aces. Survival often came down to pure luck. Ground crews became unsung heroes of the battle. Mechanics repaired damaged Spitfires and Hurricanes through the night, often under bombardment, to get planes airborne again before dawn's first attack. By early September, RAF fighter command was dangerously close to collapse. If the Luftwaffe had continued targeting airfields just a little longer, Britain's air defense might have broken completely. Then, Germany made a critical decision. On September 7th, Germany changed its target completely. Instead of airfields, nearly 300 Luftwaffe bombers turned toward London itself. It was a decision that would change the entire course of the battle. The bombs that fell that evening ignited fires across the city. East London's docklands burned through the night, visible for miles, marking the beginning of what would become known as the Blitz. For RAF Fighter Command, this was an unexpected gift. With Luftwaffe attacks now focused on London instead of airfields, damaged bases finally had time to repair aircraft and rebuild their exhausted squadrons. London civilians became the new front line. Families sheltered in underground stations night after night as bombs fell above. The city endured, but the human cost was rising fast. Meanwhile, in the skies, the RAF was quietly recovering its strength. Germany's shift in strategy had unknowingly given Britain exactly what it needed most: time. And one massive confrontation was about to prove it. September 15, 1940, the day that would decide everything. The Luftwaffe launched its heaviest raids yet against London, expecting to finally overwhelm what remained of RAF Fighter Command. Instead, they flew directly into Britain's strongest response of the entire battle. Every available Spitfire and Hurricane scrambled into the air, including squadrons Germany believed no longer existed. Wave after wave of German bombers were met with fierce resistance. Dogfights raged across the skies above London and southern England for hours, filling the air with smoke trails and falling wreckage. By the end of the day, the Luftwaffe had lost 56 aircraft. It was a devastating blow to German morale, and undeniable proof that the RAF was far from defeated. German high command was forced to face a hard truth. Air superiority over Britain was no longer achievable. The invasion that Hitler had planned for months now hung entirely in the balance. 2 days later, Hitler made the decision that changed the war. On September 17th, he indefinitely postponed Operation Sea Lion. The invasion of Britain would never happen. The Luftwaffe shifted to night bombing to reduce their own losses. Daylight raids became too costly to sustain. The Blitz continued, but the battle for air superiority was already lost. By October 31st, the last major daylight attacks ended. The Battle of Britain was officially over. Britain had done what no one thought possible. It had stopped Hitler completely. The cost had been staggering on both sides. Nearly 1,900 German aircraft were destroyed, along with over 1,800 RAF planes. Thousands of young pilots from both air forces never came home. Winston Churchill later said it best: "Never was so much owed by so many to so few." This was the Battle of Britain, the first time Hitler's war machine had been stopped completely